Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of One Piece Season 7 on Netflix. And this includes the whole Navarone arc, Foxy doing his stuff, the whole memories kind of issue, and then Foxy coming back and then dealing with like Aokiji. And I enjoyed this season. This is where it kind of gets a little bit strange, where we kind of get a change in the animation quality after the whole Navarone arc, and I kind of enjoyed it. It got it's not like it's like a giant completely seismic shift, but a lot of things get a little bit better. Though certain times on certain kind of faces, it's like, what the fuck's kind of going on here? But we pretty much are off at the starting off where we ended with the whole end of Sky Island. They pretty much fall from the sky into a marine base. G8, I believe? Yeah. Also called Navarone. And we learned that this is kind of like a backwater kind of one, that the world government thinks that it's stupid, it shouldn't be manned and everything, and the Straw Hats picked but like the worst kind of inconvenient kind of place to do this. And the thing is, they kind of split up. The Marines think that it's like a ghost ship. We also get a kind of thing that was in the whole Sky Island bit, because there was somebody that repaired the Going Merry that wasn't Usopp or any of the Straw Hats. Like, what the fuck was on with that? And we get a little bit more of a tease in this whole Navarone arc, as one of the ship people is looking at the Going Merry and seeing that it's kind of rough and everything. And Usopp talks with him later on, and we're like, that's kind of weird. Some weird kind of entity repaired your ship. We get kind of more of that in the kind of next season, which is nice and definitely ties into what kind of goes on. Now, granted, I'm pretty deep into that, and that one will almost be done as well. But it's funny. You really kind of get sucked into it, and so like, all right, kind of keep on going and everything. I really liked the Navarone arc because it was an interesting setup, having the Straw Hats on kind of the back foot and putting it as not a complete kind of battle thing. That's the really kind of strong part of this season. There are fights that go on, but you more have kind of thinking kind of strategies with force utilized in a better kind of scenario, rather than just go full force and brute force your way through something. Granted, Luffy still is that kind of person, so he still kind of works into that kind of route. So they're kind of split up and kind of like away from each other. Zoro has the worst kind of fucking direction possible. Nami has her wave runner. Usopp and Robin are kind of like together at one point, but then he's like, fuck this shit, and is trying to do his own thing. Sanji gets together with Luffy, and they try and pretty much hide in his kitchen, but of course Sanji does his teaching of kind of cooking, which was kind of awesome, because these people were doing well with feeding their Marines, but then he's like, you're wasting a lot of food, and then takes all this waste kind of stuff and makes it up. These are supposed to be these swanky chefs that serve like million berry plates and all that kind of stuff, but it's just Sanji doing his good food, and Luffy being like the worst kind of one to kind of hide, even as he's like the taste tester, which is just him eating incessantly. And he had to take like food to like the commander of the garrison, Jonathan, and he's evidently married to the chef person, and he pretty much gives the ghost away pretty much by eating the dude's food while he's there, and then Sanji's able to kind of like break him out. Let's see. Nami kind of like hides around. Zoro pretty much get captured almost instantly while Nami's pretty much hiding. Chopper's kind of getting around before he kind of like links up with Nami, and they help out this doctor, which was really cool and definitely was nice character development on Chopper's part, where he's like, I'm a doctor, I gotta help these people, because a marine ship came in and everybody was injured. And then this like inspector dude's pretty much coming around to like shut down the base, but Robin fucking like knocks his ass out and impersonates the person. And Usopp attempted to do that first, but she had like the coat and everything like that, and pretty much just like was like, yeah, no, and then he gets thrown into the dungeon, but it works into the kind of route that like that would probably be the safest place for Usopp at the moment. But then when Luffy and Sanji are trying to run around, they kind of get herded to like breaking them out of the jail cell. And the thing is, the one inspector dude was brought up, and he gets thrown in, and they kind of play around that like he's a Straw Hat, but he's not. And they're trying to get in and kind of like get him out, but it's an ambush kind of thing going on, and they're pretty much going to try and like keep him centered in there for the moment. One of the funniest fucking things was that they were trying to find like the impact dial to destroy the bars and everything because it's sea prism stone. And how they got out, I mean, granted, it was disgusting but funny as shit because Luffy had like recorded a fart in one of the dials. And it goes off. Everyone's like, "Oh God, what's that thing?" It lights, like it gets, it's set off by one of the candles and blows up shit. I'm like, I laughed my ass off. Like, granted, I understand that like it's certain kind of gross out humor, but I'm just like, that worked for them, and that typifies the Straw Hats. Like, granted, they won't go they rarely go complete stupid, and that working out completely for them. They'll go kind of like adjacent to that, and it just kind of works out fine enough. But it's like, oh God. So they get out, and the ambush that Jonathan had set up would have worked if they weren't following Roronoa with his worst directions, which actually saved them. I kind of love that his fucked up sense of direction actually got them out of there. They pretty much link up with Chopper and Nami, and the doctor chick, she's pretty much was mainly a pediatrician kind of doctor, but like all the rest would have been called away, and she does not like the sight of blood. She pretty much faints at it, but just Chopper helped her out and everything, and she decides to essentially play their hostage as they pretty much are getting back onto the Going Merry. So they were pretty much trying to get out. They're almost like, yeah, we're going to leave this place. But then Nami's like, they took the gold. And Jonathan's like, yep. And it's funny because even though the Straw Hats win, Jonathan also wins as well, because they do kind of beat up various different kind of like units and everything. Even though they don't represent a giant threat to the Straw Hats, there's enough overwhelming force here that if they are tired out easily enough, they could have been captured, and this could have gone very badly for them. So that's, I do like that. It's like, okay, Luffy fucking took down one of the warlords. He then fought this dude who was calling himself a god and just being a complete and utter douche dick up in Sky Island. His power scaling is like, you gotta like work well enough to present a kind of credible threat. And you're just like, holy fucking shit. How's this gonna kind of work out? Well, it's like the environment and everything going on, and Jonathan pretty much trying to do everything. He's like, I got your goal. And the thing is, you'd think Nami's being kind of greedy, but the thing is, they don't play it off like that. They need that gold to effect repairs on the Merry. So they pretty much stay inside. They build it up to pretty much look like a marine vessel, and they decide to have like different kind of teams to work out what they need to do. Let's see here. No. Because they needed the waiver. There we go. And we see that they pretty much are able to break into a vault, but there's no gold in there. Nami is able to retrieve the waiver, and they kind of are trying to figure out where the gold would be, and it would probably be in the commander's quarters. They get in there. They almost pretty much capture Luffy with a sea prism net, but Nami's able to essentially Pikachu blast these motherfuckers with her climb attack thing, and they're able to get all the gold, and they're busting out, and Jonathan's like, they're gonna get out. However, the inspector dude has been fucking around everything and has this giant fucking bazooka that he's already kind of blown himself up a couple times because they pretty much had him dead to rights in the vault, but like he kind of fucked that up. They utilized him as like the great gift that he was to just get the fuck out of there. And we see that there is a certain kind of time that you don't want to mess around in this place, and then the tide goes to a point where the Merry is grounded, and the dude's trying to like blow him up with a rocket launcher again, but they utilize, they're like, alright, how do we get out of this? How about we use the impact dial? It would be really cool if we had that octopus. It's like, we still have him. I've had him in my shorts the whole time. It's like, that poor octopus. What the fuck? And I was just like laughing, and they pretty much force Usopp to use the impact dial and kind of like blast him off as they use the other dials to inflate the octopus as they escape. And the thing is, even though they were allowed to escape, Jonathan was able to get the whole garrison together and work effectively as a team, and to show that they are still credible and that they still gave the pirates a good run for their money. They didn't destroy the base or anything. They didn't kill a whole lot of people, and it worked out. It's like, oh, that's interesting there. Then we start getting into the whole bit with the Foxy Pirate Gang and Davy back battles, which Foxy annoys the fucking shit out of me. Now, granted, I don't think he is like a bad character or anything. It's the kind of character he is. He definitely reminds me of Buggy, but I don't think they are bad characters. That's a kind of distinction you gotta have with certain things. Like, this dude annoys me because he's an asshole, he cheats, he does all these cunning, tricksy, foxy kind of things. Hence his name and everything. And also, he doesn't like being called Splithead, which is interesting. But see, Luffy and the gang get to this, like, this interesting, strange island. Long Ring Long Island, where everything's kind of long, trees are tall and everything, they're kind of walking around. They see this horse, Chopper thought it was a giraffe, but granted, I wouldn't blame him because it's a fucking long horse. And then they find these fucking, like, bamboo sticks, and Luffy's like, they're possessed! And kind of, like, chops them. It's like, oh, God, this old man, he was possessing these bamboo sticks. I was on those stilts for 10 years! And learning his whole backstory was kind of cool, is that he's part of this nomadic tribe. However, he got stuck up there, and his, like, grandson was, like, heartbroken that they had to leave him. He's like, it'll take me a while to kind of, like, get everywhere, because every so often, the tide gets low enough that they could, like, hoof it around these land bridges. However, while Luffy's learning about this and everything like that, we see the Foxy group pop up, and we see that they try and capture the horse. This pisses off Luffy, and then pretty much instigates him getting into a Davy back battle with Foxy. Now, granted, before they got to this island, they saw this pretty much Fang Frog pirates, and they looked like they didn't know what they were doing, because these sea monkeys, fucking hell, those things are fucking insane, are making these giant waves, and then, like, fucks them over. It's like, what the fuck's going on? It's like, we don't have a navigator, we don't have a captain. That pirate group got some fucking problems. What we learned in a Davy back battle, that there are different kind of ways to fight for pirates, and this is where you pretty much make an agreement, pretty much bound by, like, Davy Jones, like, if you don't do this shit, Davy Jones gonna get your ass, kind of shit. And the thing is, if you win these different various kind of challenges, you can take crews, you can take the Jolly Roger, and you can pretty much decimate a pirate crew. Very interesting. I don't like that they're, like, cheating and everything, but it definitely puts it up in a different kind of perspective battle where brute strength is not the answer. Now, granted, Luffy was very kind of stupid because he doesn't really... And, like, granted, I don't need him to, like, shout his plans out, but he doesn't confer with anybody with anything kind of going on. Because they lose the first one and lose Chopper, and I'm like, no, Chopper, shit. They take him, and he's like, I don't really agree with Zoro's kind of way of being like, deal with it like a man or what. And I'm like, alright. I mean, granted, I don't know how people be like, oh, okay, I'm your pirate crew, I now quit being a pirate, and then just fuck off. Granted, there's, like, issues that can occur. However, if you're really into the pirate life and everything, and you take that shit very seriously, yeah, I could see how it would just be, like, complete heartbreak for Chopper. I mean, I feel for him. He's, like, one of my favorites, man. I mean, I like a lot of the crew, even though certain kind of personality stuff goes a little bit up more on me. Sanji is the one that fucking deals with that, like, every pretty girl, man, sweet Jesus, like, oh, God. Yeah. But they're trying to get up for the next one, and they actually win it, and instead of getting Chopper back, he decides to get Shelly back for the old man, and that was pretty much his kind of goal for it, as they then get into the last battle, because they had, like, a ship race around kind of thing, the island, let me see, the main thing is that Foxy's got like the slow fruit powers. Yeah, they had the ball game with Sanji and Zoro, which, holy shit, this stuff with Foxy really showed that the Straw Hats, while good individually, need to learn how to work more effectively as a team. Like when Sanji and Zoro were able to kind of get out of their own asses and like effectively work as a team, they were able to wreck shit and do shit that needed to be done to win that second round. And then the third one was this roller rink one, which definitely was interesting to figure out how people needed to do their powers to work out and get Chopper back. And of course, Foxy starts making fun of him, like, oh yeah, and by the way, their ability to like field like a giant ass crew of like 500 people and essentially do their own fucking kind of stalls was definitely interesting and kind of cool to see how a different kind of pirate crew operated. So they're able to have to deal with fucking Foxy's beams and everything, and this really showcases Nico Robin's kind of abilities to kind of like hamper with them, which kind of goes into Foxy's strategy going into the second Davy Back battle, because Luffy's like, fuck this shit, we're doing another one, because, oh yeah, you're not a real pirate if you don't try and like come out on top on one of these motherfuckers. It's like, ah shit. So, let's see. The ranks. So then they had like a race to the top of an island, which, oh my god, Zoro's inability to find direction was once again hilarious, and they almost won, but Sanji fucked it up for him. Like, granted, this is one where I felt more kind of plot reasons for tension and everything like that for them to lose. Because that was a level of stupidity. You're like, Sanji, why the fuck did you kick him that fucking direction? You could have kicked him any fucking place. And right there. It's like, god damn it, dude. Let's see. But he decides to take Robin. Let me see. Wait a minute. No, wait, there was another thing. No, Dodgeball. Dodgeball is where they took Robin from. Which was nuts, because Luffy ate a fucking Dodgeball. Granted, I understand he's stupid, and he's like a glutton, and he does weird fucking shit. But I'm just like... And that's evidently one of the rules. Now you've lost, you're disqualified because you ate the ball. Can you tell that was the ball? Like, it was just, oh, fuck. And of course they lose Chopper again with the whole foot race thing. Sorry that I'm a little bit out of order on that. Yeah. And then the last one pretty much turns into a boxing match between Foxy and Luffy, where they did this whole kind of bit with an afro and everything, and Usopp and Luffy, which, getting into like the next season, I kind of understand to kind of show the camaraderie. It's just a joke that I'm like, alright, cool. And this was at least good, because even though I'm saying that I like this because it showcased that like Braun doesn't, that you have to think about certain things, it did again end up coming into Luffy pretty much persevering through his strength of pretty much his body to take punishment and his brawn of taking out Foxy. However, he did have to kind of think of certain things because Foxy was pulling everything out of his ass, utilizing his slow beam very effectively to not just slow him, but to slow other objects, have them pop off at certain different kind of times. It wasn't just a complete gimmick of like, I've made you slow kind of shit. And Luffy pretty much fighting for his crew because the ante was up to pretty much be like, okay, 500 people and like any subsequent generations of kids going on. And Luffy won, took the crew. Foxy and Portia and Hamburg were pretty much like flowing off, and then he like released all the rest of them. They kind of go back up together. We then get a pretty much kind of palate cleanser kind of one, where the Straw Hats find this island and they lose their memories, all except Nico Robin, who has to stay up this almost entire little mini arc, and fucking trying to figure out what's going on. All these people are losing their memories. It is interesting to see everybody kind of like snap back to their status quo. Nami, why the fuck did I pronounce it that other way? Nami going off and pretty much trying to get back to her island. Zoro just being like, the fuck is going on with this shit? Luffy and all the rest of them just like trying to acclimate, by Robin's like figuring everything kind of out. This one little kid with this kind of seahorse thing, you're thinking it's the kid, but it's actually the seahorse that steals dreams and everything. Well, not dreams, but like memories, for its goal to become like a millennial dragon. It's like, god damn, asshole, fuck you. There's gotta be other ways to do that shit. And Luffy like accidentally hits it at one point and gets his memories back and kind of like gets everybody else kind of going on. But Robin kind of taking command of the situation and trying to like help everybody out was definitely interesting. And this worked better to showcase like Luffy fighting Zoro, because the kid and the seahorse pretty much put like mind control Zoro and has him fighting Luffy. And this came off better than the Whiskey Peak one, where the Whiskey Peak one was just very thinly kind of veiled of just like pitting them against each other. This one had more of a stake of like, okay, this actually makes narrative sense and does get to showcase where they're at this moment. Now granted, of course, taking the memories from Zoro does kind of hamper and change his abilities, because he's learned different kind of techniques at this point, but we get to see him kind of like duke it out a little bit. Nami tried to like talk the rest of them out of just like leaving, but they get to the thing, they get their memories back, and we get the whole spiel of the seahorse trying to become a millennial dragon before it takes pretty much everybody's memories again, before Luffy is the one to pretty much like trap onto him, because he's like, what the fuck is that giant fucking thing? As Chopper is like explaining and stuff, it goes even further back, taking memories, because they pretty much stopped at their certain points where they kind of like came on, well, not came on, but like their kind of last kind of save point, if you will. But then Luffy's like squeezing the damn thing, gets his memories back, and then pretty much gets everyone back at it as well, as it's then like knocked off. Everybody gets their memories back. The kid pretty much runs off and says that it's the Straw Hats that are the problem, but they're able to get there because Nami was pretty much porting around the gold, but they get that, then waver, they get off, and they set off for the next kind of thing, which is getting back with the whole Foxy crew. It's like, what the fuck? Let's see, memories. The memory bit was a nice, like, little enjoyable kind of palate kind of cleanser. It's like, alright, we dealt with Navarone, we dealt with Foxy. This kind of holds us off, but is an interesting kind of one to see how far our crew have come, and what would happen since they're trying to figure out they're on the Grand Line. They've lost their memories. Last bit they knew they were probably in the East Blue. And how Robin kind of deals with that situation. It was nice to showcase her kind of effective thinking and abilities of what's kind of going on. So they kind of rescue Foxy, Hamburg, and Portia from the sea. They find out it's captained by somebody else. Foxy accepts a Davy back fight in order to gain his ship and crew, and Luffy gets the frickin' Afro again to try and defeat the captain. But of course, once they help Foxy, he starts to try and go after the Straw Hats again. So this is a kind of weird one. I don't hate it necessarily. It definitely had its enjoyable moments, but it's almost like they were like, alright, we've introduced Foxy, let's kind of like do this shit out, and the Straw Hats just kind of like beat ass throughout this whole thing, and Nami kind of helps Luffy fighting with Foxy and Portia, and pretty much get the Fanged Frog Pirates kind of back into Foxy kind of fold and following him, and then just kind of tell him to fuck off as they then sail off to another kind of thing. And then we see an interesting kind of power dynamic going on of learning of the admirals and this one Aokiji, as he's like going off, he just went on a walk, and we just see him biking on the ocean. It's like, what the fuck's going on here? And let's see, High Admiral, yeah. And of course the Foxy crew tries to like fuck around and kind of mess with the Straw Hats again and a giant crab as Luffy pretty much destroys it and tries to eat it. So par on course for what we've got so far. But they're like going through, they're trying to get food and water from this place, get supplies and everything, and Chopper thinks he sees pretty much like a kind of mushroom or whatnot and bangs into someone. Luffy's like, who hit my friend? And we find that it's High Admiral Aokiji as he's just kind of sleeping, standing up. It's like, alright. Pretty much like, nah, I'm just taking a walk and shit, man. Like, he'd deal with the Straw Hats, but he's like, I'm just like looking around and shit like that. Getting reports and everything. Even asked Nami, I was like, man, you got big boobs. I'm like, oh, sweet Jesus. Okay, he's kind of lazy, but we've definitely learned that he is a force to be reckoned with. Well, these group of people also come out. They're like, our fucking ship got scracked, like destroyed by this fucking frog doing the front crawl. And they're like, what the fuck? And that actually does get more explanation, especially when we get into the next arc with Water 7. But Aokiji, let me see. So they decide to help them and everything. They're first worried that they're pirates. They have to pretty much cajole Aokiji into helping them. It's like, you're supposed to be one of these government people that are supposed to help people. Like, you're a High Admiral. And they eventually get him to do it. They give him food and supplies. We see this, like, Sea King coming at him, and he uses his ice powers, saying Ice Age, and he freezes the fucking sea so they can walk across. It's like, you got about a week to get there. You're fine. It's like, ah, shit. And they're like, thank you for everything, thanking him. And the rest of them, and they kind of go off, and we learn that Aokiji actually had a run-in with Luffy's grandfather. And it's like, how do you know that? How do you know my grandpa? And saying that he wants to capture Robin because every organization she's been with gets fucked over in the end, and that he's not going to stop. However, the rest of the Straw Hats decide to kind of fight and protect Robin because she's one of the Straw Hats, and she's freaking the fuck out because this is one of the high ones. He's one of the powerhouses of the world government, and we learn why, because of the use of his ice powers. He is very effective with it. Now, granted, seeing him and Ace go up into a fight would be pretty fucking interesting, but we see that he's able to pretty much freeze Sanji's legs, one of Zoro's arms, one of Luffy's arms, and he's trying to fight him as best as he can, but he then eventually freezes Robin entirely, and everybody's freaking the fuck out, but they're able to get her back on the Mary, where Chopper tries to thaw her. He's able to do it. We see that the rest of them kind of get out. Luffy gets frozen solid as well, but they get everybody onto the ship. They get everything working out, and Aokiji pretty much leaves and goes off. He's like, alright, fine. His objective, he didn't have a clear objective in actually capturing them. He kind of attempted it, but he's like, if I don't need to, I'll do this eventually. And we see that how he's been going across the ocean is that he is able to use his devil fruit powers to freeze it and bike along on his bike. That's very fucking convenient. That's like fucking... Like... Granted, he'd be lazy to a certain extent, but having the ability to control shit like that, and to that degree, he's a force that the Straw Hats are going to have to reckon with. But we see that they're pretty much trying to figure out what's going on. And see, the thing is, Aokiji believed he had to repay a debt the Marines incurred with Crocodile's defeat at Luffy's hands. So that's why he pretty much let them go as well. I mean, his laziness kind of also just kind of factored into it. Like, he was going to capture Robin, but of course the Straw Hats and everything did help in dealing with Crocodile, pretty much attempting to get Pluton and become unto his own self and pretty much fuck with the world government, which is interesting enough because of where we will eventually be going in the next season and learn the world government's not as innocent on that kind of front as they would like you to believe. So they kind of throw themselves they're all kind of better. We see them trying to like recoup and figure out, Jesus, this is the new kind of threat, and this is the threat that the world government can pose to us. So that was kind of cool to give us a next kind of like power thing from Luffy, like how I was talking about with Navarone. It's like, alright, we haven't seen anything that could really get onto Luffy's level, and we're seeing this, and it's like, holy shit, he needs to fucking think about how to deal with this shit. And we then pretty much see that frog doing the front crawl, and they're like chasing after its ass. Now granted, Luffy and mainly Zoro and Sanji want to fucking eat its ass, but they kind of run in and see this kind of like train thing coming. When they're able to get out of the way fast enough, it's just like, what the fuck? So that kind of leads them to the next kind of arc, the Water 7 kind of island and everything, and we'll get to that one because that has a lot of shit, and I'm not completely finished with it yet. But we're getting there, and I did like this season because the Navarone arc was very interesting, and I liked seeing how Luffy and the crew dealt with being in a severely backfooted situation in a stronghold of the world government. The Foxy crew, the first time around with the Davy Back battles, was interesting and a nice kind of change of pace of how the fighting structure would be going on and how Luffy's use of excessive force didn't kind of work out in most instances, even though the last one was pretty much him and his fighting spirit coming through with his strength at the end to kind of win it out. The whole thing with the memories worked to have a nice kind of cleanser, though going back to the Foxy crew again, I was kind of like, we kind of already did this, why are we back here? It was almost like they needed to spend some time a little bit, but we'll see if anything kind of comes back from that before the whole stuff with Aokiji, which was a nice setup of like the whole kind of history of Robin and her history with the world government. She's been with a lot of organizations, and she's left a lot of organizations that have pretty much been destroyed or screwed over after she's left them, and how the Straw Hats fought to help and save her, and how the world government used Luffy in kind of a weird kind of light in that he's a pirate, he's a criminal, but he's helped them with the Warlord Crocodile, so we'll kind of give you a A1C kind of shit kind of thing before we'll see kind of where everything else goes. So I did enjoy it for the character development and everything that we've gotten, and the kind of progression on the plot, and just fucking around in the grand line. It's like pirate adventures. Granted, everybody's still got their goals and everything, but I do like that we've got stories that will kind of get us there, and we'll kind of see how it kind of goes in next seasons. So those are my opinions on the season. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.